And then we can call the meeting to order at 3 p.m. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Mark has said he will not be here. So we have everybody for the committee. Roy Gott chair, Sandy Fortin, Mike Summerer, and Tom Toll. And right now we have Olivia Jolie?
The first one.
Oh,
Jolly like
Okay.
Christmas.
Okay, for the Hancock County Planning Commission. Thank you for joining us. We may get Kendra Jo a little bit later. Hopefully we do, because I'd love to see if she has anything more that she'd like to add. But let's just jump into it. First, we have the April 15th, 2025 meeting minutes.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the minutes as presented. Any discussion?
Nope.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Was that a yes on you, Mike, or were you
Yeah,
abstaining?
that was a
Okay.
yes.
All right, perfect. Update of action steps. We really didn't have much in the way of action steps. We were, monitor after the last meeting. Gouldsboro report. Do you have anything that you?
Nothing
anybody?
that I'm aware of.
Okay. Sandy has a couple things, but let's just get those right aired out of the gate here.
Sure. Yeah, so two things. Actually, there's a third thing that just came up at the select board meeting too that I'll share. Two things that I wanted to bring to the committee is reimbursement request for technology from the town of Winter Harbor. Sarah, the new town manager, did actually end up purchasing an owl and a case, I believe. So there will be a request coming down the road. She didn't have receipts, or she wasn't able to dig up receipts or information for this particular meeting. But there would be a request down the road, and I would just ask that the committee would approve reimbursement for that. My understanding is we still have significant funds from the grant funding available in the account for equipment needs like this. So that would be one update, and open for any questions about that.
What's I know they don't have the exact receipt, but what's the magnitude of the ask here?
It's probably like $1,100. I think Roy was the one we got for Gouldsboro. Was it about 1,000?
So I would say if it is a Meeting Owl 3, which has been out for a few years now, then it would be in the ballpark of $1,100 or $1,200 with the case. If it is a Meeting Owl 4, those are clocking in closer to 2,000, and
Okay.
deservedly so, because they are 4K high definition cameras and so forth, and presumably much better than the ones that we have. So it'll be interesting to see what that is. I have to say, I'm not gonna say I wouldn't support it, but I do want to figure out what this, as we have on the agenda for committee wind up and repurpose. I do think we should keep in mind what our work is going to be going forward if there's more work, because I'm not unsympathetic. I know, you've had a change in town leadership in Winter Harbor, but we offered an owl before and it was rejected. And so we bought over $1,000 worth of networking equipment, which, as I understand, has been installed. I haven't heard how it worked out, but hopefully that's up and working well at the gym. And we've sort of committed to giving our owl to the town of Gouldsboro. So in the idea of giving stuff away to the two towns, I would just, if we give something more to Winter Harbor as a reimbursement, I then worry about what's going to be the expectation out of fairness for Gouldsboro.
Knowing that this is farther down on the agenda, if we were to decide to end this committee, it might be worth thinking about what we have given to each town historically, and then if it is roughly equal, then simply liquidate our funds equally to the two towns. It doesn't, I see little difference between networking equipment and an owl if the value is roughly the same. The towns could choose to do what they want on either side.
I would suggest that we table this just
Mhm.
for the time being and see
Yep.
what goes.
Yeah,
Right, and we don't even have
Yeah.
the request yet, so
Right.
this
Right.
would be for a subsequent meeting anyway.
Yeah,
Um,
I thought it was important to bring it to this meeting, though, knowing that we were talking about the end funds, so that you have that in mind for a future ask.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And update
Go ahead.
about that. So the technology at the gym is working well, and the owl is fantastic. The town has actually stepped forward. If you're not aware, the marina is up for sale, and it's a major topic of whether we can keep that for the town access or not, for the ferry and for islands people, etc. So we had sort of a urgent community conversation set up that was facilitated by our town manager, deputy clerk, and Maine Coast Heritage Trust in the gymnasium using the owl, using our Wi-Fi, which was a huge success. This was one of the best attended meetings. We had about 44 people in attendance live, and we had another 11 people virtually attend. So just this is a major, major step for Winter Harbor that shouldn't be taken lightly. And so I just wanted to bring that to light with regards to how this has actually impacted our community in a significant way. So with that brings my second comment. Did you have comments about that?
Well, I just want to say I'm glad to hear that it is working well and has already been put to good use.
Yeah, really, the community is super excited that we're finally stepping into the the next logical move for connection with the community. Which brings up the point that we held this meeting, but we don't actually have a policy on holding meetings virtually. So just wanted any input from the committee here or for Hancock County Planning to be able to provide an actual policy to the Select Board of Winter Harbor and the town manager to help move forward with using the OWL and having virtual meetings again in the future. And so just putting that out to the committee about any support that might be offered. I had shared a couple of, Olivia's got, go ahead, Olivia.
Yeah, so hi, I'm the Broadband and Digital Equity Regional Planner with Hancock County Planning Commission, and we're the Regional Wabanaki Broadband Partnership, which is ending this year. We have funding currently to support municipalities and communities with broadband and digital equity, inclusion, opportunity, whichever word you want to use now.
Okay.
Projects, grant technical assistance, but one of the things we're working on right now is a municipal tech workbook that goes all the way from digital communications to cybersecurity. So, and how to maintain your computers and when you need to get new ones. So you don't have the blue screen of death while you're trying to access your unbacked up files. So we'll be hosting a workshop on that and distributing that sometime in October. So I'll make sure everyone on this list is included. But I can send over some example, like shake and bake, like you could just plug in Winter Harbor and it would be legal and great and good. Examples from doing that research. As well as we did some hybrid meeting type best practices and other things. There's a whole chapter in the municipal tech workbook about this. So that
Nice.
resource will be coming out soon. But please feel free to ask if you want to talk about this particularly or make any materials or resources specifically, like a meeting checklist. We're also developing guidelines on AI note takers because those can be real great
Mm.
for certain things. But there's also the issue of if you go into executive session for select board meeting and you forget to turn off the recording and someone's AI note taker was in there and you forgot to remove them, that gets all of that transcript all set and good. So happy to help build the capacity and kind of policies and practices around making those links available, setting up some of that digital meeting infrastructure, and that goes to Winter Harbor and all the other towns involved in this committee. I'm just excited to
Excellent.
help.
Excellent. Thank you, Olivia.
Yeah, and
Um,
Olivia, if I could just add, if you if you have any of those resources, feel free to send them along to the email address that you've been using, and I can push them out to the other people here. We do have a group. I just don't know how accessible it is from the outside for people to email the group. So if you send it to me, I'll push it out. And the other thing I would add, Sandy, is that I know Gouldsboro has been incorporating a remote component to their meetings for quite a while. So they may have a policy already as well. I'm not
Okay.
sure how up to date it is, and I know they stepped away from it and then they want to get back to it. There's been both directions within the town government. So
And Olivia, have either Goldsboro or Winter Harbor reached out to you already? No,
Nope.
okay.
So
Alright.
part of the things
Yeah.
that I can be helpful with is I'm creating a resource library for specific things related to municipal broadband committees and digital equity and just like tech in general on the HTPC website. So I might just send an email to you, Roy, with all of the like current up-to-date information that you can distribute in terms of what I know about BEAD, what I know about state and local cybersecurity programs, what I know about digital communication plans and potential funding opportunities. Also, my funding for this particular stuff, unless some other things come through, ends in December, and so I can also help out with some website updates or other policies or just municipal tech support questions. Send them my way, please.
I assume that includes social media. Yeah, okay, cool. Super helpful. Thanks, Olivia. And Roy, I think I had done a search originally for Goldsboro and I didn't come up with anything immediate, and it may be that I just wasn't searching correctly, because that's the first place I was hoping to go, is just try to mirror.
if you
I'm
were
not
searching the,
aware of a policy, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
yeah,
Okay.
I think legally they are required to have a policy to be able to keep doing that remote component. Whether or not it's been adopted, that's one thing. Whether or not it's something posted on their website, even if they have adopted it, that's another
Right.
thing entirely.
Right.
So, but it's worth
Okay.
a call, and maybe Josh at the town office would know. Brianna might also know.
Okay,
And
cool.
you had a third point. I'm just going to
Yeah.
make a quick call while you're going into your third point to see if Kendra Jo is going to be joining us.
Yep. The third point was just merely the cell phone tower in town that was put in Winter Harbor had AT&T cell service receptivity. Just got word at the select board meeting that Verizon is now being added to that tower as well, which I'm particularly happy about, because ever since AT&T went in, my Verizon connection has not been well, and I've had a really difficult time making calls here. And I've heard from several other people that they actually switched their cell phones to AT&T because they also were not getting Verizon service out here. So very excited that that's coming down the line. I don't believe it's changed as of today, because I still am only getting barely a bar where I live, just down the road from the tower.
So MCA and kind of they've done a lot of internet connectivity. One of the things that they're doing is partnering with an organization called Blaze to check out the cell service in Maine. So they're trying to map dead spots and kind of get an idea of how good or how bad are we. And if y'all wouldn't mind, Kendra Jo emailed the RWBP partners. So they will be traveling around the state to document stories from community members about how gaps in service provide barriers to work safety and health and well-being. Sometime soon, following this initial outreach for stories, they will be creating something where you can say, hey, from this location to this location on this road. So like
Yeah.
the whole
Dead
Blackwoods
zone.
campground
Yeah.
road, I already reported that in, where I'm like, this is a safety hazard because it's 8, 10, 12 miles where you can't get any cell service and there's nothing around. So MCA kind of alongside BEAD will be working with Blaze Partners and Tilson Technology to identify gaps in cellular service and guide future investments. So if people in this group would be okay with me kind of putting, it's not Kendra, but it's someone adjacent to her in her office. If you'd like to be contacted or kept in the loop, I will be tracking this and keeping people in the loop as well, so I can provide those updates. But if there's more direct communication that you'd like, I can put your information out there.
Yeah, I would personally be open to that. Summer Harbor Road is a dead zone, and East Scudic Drive is also a dead zone. And just keeping in mind that when the Summering folks arrive and we suddenly have 30,000 people trying to use the same cell phone tower, I'm not sure how that all works, but it seems like I have absolutely no coverage once there's a lot of people in town.
Yep.
Sandy, it's almost like you picked the dead zones to live in.
Apparently, well, I do like to be unplugged. I guess I probably wish that on myself, but I
You know,
need it for work, and I've had it for
and
emergencies.
yeah, and to jump on that bandwagon, I know from my own personal experience, I have a track phone. It's on Verizon. There is basically my office at Scudic Institute, which is in Moore Auditorium. I can get reception there, but anywhere else on campus is enough for it to ring and then for the call to basically drop a lot of the times. And that's the best service I think that we have on campus. And, we have, sometimes we have 100 people come in, 100 plus people come to campus, and they have basically no reception for any of their services unless they're lucky to have Verizon and be in the place that I'm at. So any updates on that will be helpful, and it'll be interesting to see how this tower might impact that. I don't know what the range of the towers is, the size of the cells that they cover. So it's not really inside of our mandate as a committee, but it's communication, and it's interesting. And again, that could be something that we continue to work on. So
Roy, do you mind if I put them in contact with you to talk about the Scudic Institute particular aspect? That sounds like an awesome story in terms of showing the need for it, especially in a hub of community like that.
by all means.
Sweet.
I would hate to think that we have to set up like phone booths again that have connectivity across our community.
All right. So is that everything for Winter Harbor, Sandy?
That is everything. Yes, thank you.
Okay. I did leave a message for Kendra Joe, so we'll see if she comes in. We'll skip down to further work support. Olivia, this is you had some just general want to see what maybe could be done in conjunction with our committee if we had further work to do. So.
Yeah. So I've been doing a litany of projects. One of the things that I'm looking for is getting digital navigator capacity for Hancock County, specifically in partnership with the adult eds. So I've been talking with Ander at RSU 24. And this would particularly be, they would be digital navigators based out of the adult eds, but they would be like a roving tech coach where if there's community organizations or spaces that people, especially covered populations, such as elderly folks with disabilities, incarcerated or formerly justice involved folks, meeting them where they're comfortable at. And also covered populations includes rural, and that's all of Maine basically, by their definitions. So I will keep y'all posted on how that goes. I'm meeting with AARP about kind of what's happening after the regional Wabanaki broadband partnership comes to a close. And so I'm meeting with Alf there. And it seems like there might be some AARP funding or other things, but just continuing to be involved in these conversations so I can help connect y'all with potential funding opportunities. I will say it seems like the Northern Border Regional Commission, Community Development Block Grants, and Community Action Grants provide opportunities for folks to continue digital equity work, especially in terms of the Community Action Grants through the Community Resilience Partnership. There's multiple actions on that list where if it's one town, it would be up to $75,000. If it's multiple towns working on the same project, I believe it's $175,000 is the cap. So I've been looking for innovative ways to kind of work the digital equity, digital inclusion angle, especially with building capacity with municipalities. So if there's a town or a group of towns interested in that, it would be interesting to see because you can do multiple projects. So if it was a portion of funds for each town involved, it would be easy to help get people set up with all they need. There's also continued funding through the state and local cybersecurity grant program. That's been kind of a hit or miss so far, so we're figuring out and in communications with their action officers and their planning team at the state, and it's a lot of state people and FEMA and CISA that are trying to figure out funding, but a lot of it is going to a third party kind of contracted project management doing the rollout group, but they're trying to give people cybersecurity products and support. So the current ones right now are .gov domain migration. So they're trying to get towns to switch to .gov domains. So less people click on a .com that could be faking its status as a town, just so there's municipal branding for towns. They're also trying to figure out what product for endpoint detection response they want to roll out, which that's like 5 steps above basic antivirus or anti-malware information. So I've been talking with them about meeting folks where they're at and actually like understanding the needs of municipalities. But that program has been focused on municipal governments and school districts and like K through 12. And there's been a lot more interaction or input from K through 12 than municipal governments. So that program should be continuing to be funded until 2029. But there may be more support through that for municipal governments kind of catching up with digital things because it all has cybersecurity implications.
Olivia, can you, and I should know more clearly myself because I've been doing this for a little while now, but can you give me the most digestible way to explain digital equity to people? Because it's one of those terms that seems like you should know what it means, but can you just give me what you would say to somebody if you were trying to explain it concisely?
I would say in the way that I would explain it is, let me like process this. I feel like I'm answering a $1 million question. But I like to think about it similar in a way to like ADA compliance, where if you are expecting people to walk up the stairs to get into your town office to do basic government functions or go into a school and walk up the stairs and they can't, you're not providing an equitable resource or opportunity for people to engage or access those services, and you're putting undue burden on folks with different ability to access those resources or exist in those spaces. And so digital equity is not, we're going to get everyone a laptop and teach them how to use it. But it's removing some of those initial barriers for folks to be able to access the digital world, because so much of our government, our socializing, everything is becoming digital and streamlined, and we're using AI and algorithms to make all of these systems easier, as governments are dealing with more people and more forms and all sorts of regulations. I think that's part of it.
So just to follow up from that, you say removing barriers to access, basically. So when I look at barriers to access of digital resources, I'm thinking, the availability of actually capable internet service. And I think that's something that now that we have Fidium across the entire peninsula, basically, that's a big first hurdle. And now is the remaining barriers to me seem more like educational, in informing people how to access resources. And on the other side of things, I would envision it being also ensuring that resources are existing in a digital format in the first place. So, for example, the ability to re-register your vehicle online. I know that's one thing people can do through the state. So are those to me sort of seem like the other parts of this puzzle. Does that sound accurate to you?
That rings true. I would say it's a weird two-edged sword or double-ended sword or something, where the internet makes things more accessible for segments of the population, but it makes things more inaccessible for others. And I've been seeing in other towns fiber rollout, but people are still having issues getting people on the phone to be able to ask questions, to be able to sign up for the service and know how to sign up for the service, because all of that's online. Or if you can't access it online, you're calling a random phone number and hoping someone picks up. And so the education aspect of it is important. There's another aspect of it with broadband or internet service kind of as a public good or public service, where you would expect to be able to access water, or other things. That affordability question and keeping track of that, especially with ISPs, and that being for profit, of are these rates per month actually something that people can afford? Is it the time of month that they're paying? Can people pay in smaller amounts over the course of the month so they can, if they're living paycheck to paycheck, so they don't have to choose between groceries for a couple weeks and having their internet still? That's been an interesting question, and especially around the provisional BEAD awards, which I believe Consolidated Communications has gotten a lot, as well as SpaceX. So just continuing to engage and be in those spaces with internet service providers to make sure that it is an accessible utility and not something where it's like, hey, it exists everywhere, but the people who could use it to get a higher paying job or something else are not able to actually use it for engaging more effectively with the workforce or their government or social needs.
You brought up the provisional BEAD awards, so this was something that I was going to share during our update on BEAD. I know I sent out this link to the committee before, but it's interesting to me that we have as many, so in this, I assume everybody sees this map, all
Yep.
right? The predominant award or provisional award does definitely go to Consolidated Communications for their Fidium product. That's all the sort of salmon colored dots here. But there are, looking at down here in, to the left and down of the words Birch Harbor, we have a Starlink dot there, close to some other consolidated dots. And then up on, it looks like, I think that's Guzzle Road. We have some Starlink dots mixed in there. And then Shefflin Point Road, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, but right there near the Sullivan town line. We have some more Starlink there. Again, very close. So it's just interesting to me where there are some Starlink dots. I'm not 100% sure how that is agreed upon, because those are not reflected. There's also one on Ironbound Island and then one of the other islands there. So those make sense. But given the PSAs that we saw earlier, it's odd to me how this layout was achieved with these scattering of Starlinks within other area that's mostly consolidated. But I guess I had a couple of questions, but I don't want to. I want to run over anything else that Olivia wants to say on this topic.
No worries. That's been a question that has come up in multiple like RWBP meetings or any meeting I've been with MCA on, is for those Starlink ones. Is that actually affordable for folks because of the high upfront cost of the Starlink equipment? And so that is a current conversation in terms of making sure people don't forget about that upfront cost, and how are we going to not necessarily be equitable, but ensure that those locations, if they're being served by Starlink, can the people at those locations actually afford the equipment and that upfront cost, or does there need to be some sort of subsidized program potentially? I also am gonna share in the chat, MCA created a chart page, and so that has all of their maps in one place. And it also shows all of their BEAD, PSAs, eligible location, community anchor institutions, and working internet ASAP eligible locations. I will say in kind of MCA's meetings or public forums about their BEAD proposal, I believe it was 85% fiber. Folks were worried about just how much of a monopoly Consolidated Communications would have, and the community anchor institutions, while the June 6th note from NTIA kind of took the community anchor institutions off of that priority list through the negotiations and conversations between MCA and the internet service providers. I believe in Andrew's note in that proposed plan, it does state that the majority, if not all, are being served or will be served through BEAD. And so one of my roles at HCPC is tracking the BEAD program as it develops, and bugging MCA and communicating that out with towns. And so in about every monthly email newsletter that HCPC sends out, if there is a BEAD update from MCA, I put an article in there. That's my shameless plug for the HCPC newsletter.
Well, I think, go ahead and, sign up us for the updates, and it's something that, again, can be shared around. I'm glad to hear that you're going to be following up on the status of BEAD, and that's something that I'm very curious to see how this is going to go. One of the thoughts, I guess we'll switch into update on BEAD since that seems to be where this is going. Unless anybody has any other questions about this further work support, and maybe we'll circle back to that next time too. Consolidated has already built out fiber throughout these two communities in advance of BEAD. So when I look at this map and I see all of these dots for Consolidated for BEAD money, basically, it makes me, are they just gonna, I don't know, Olivia, if you have any sense, but are they basically just seeking reimbursement for the investment that they've made if they've been selected as the preliminary winning subcontractor? Is
I know
that
that
something that they could do?
there's a specific portion that is their matching funds. But I haven't heard that that is something they're able to do in terms of asking for reimbursements. I think that if they're building out like a dark fiber network, so one that hasn't really been connected, but they're putting in a lot of that like internal infrastructure or core infrastructure, that sounds like they're posing themselves to be the most logical, cost-effective provisional awardee.
Well, their network is live. Mike is on it right now, and Sandy
As
is,
Tom and Sandy.
as is Tom and Sandy. So they have been signing up customers since much earlier this summer.
Mhm.
They started construction this past winter, and so to me, it's just curious what their play is here, as because they have built it out to essentially almost every street address in the two communities. So I wonder, it doesn't really matter because we've got the service if they're awarded, but I just wonder what their play is to still be considered the winner if they've already built out and made service available to all of these locations.
So, as in, like, all of these dots for covered locations are already connected.
Or
Yes.
connectable.
There's at least a drop at each driveway.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
they had a huge push to get everybody signed up and encourage neighbors to tell neighbors to get signed up. So they've got a large population that have signed up. I'd be curious to know if they've been awarded something, will that mean that we're now gonna have a more accessible fee for the services?
That would be interesting. And I don't know why any other provider would want to bid on this peninsula any longer, because their upfront costs would be so much higher.
Yeah.
They'd have to build another infrastructure.
I mean, Spectrum would have to replace their coax with fiber, which
Yeah.
we know in some communities they've done. But I don't know it's what they're interested in doing right away. So it's just interesting to me is all, and I was curious.
Yeah, I'll get a hold of Kendra. We see each other pretty often, so I will check in, as in I bug her over email too much, so she actually responds to me now.
To another point that was mentioned, and I know we had a discussion with someone who was at least connected to, if not involved with, an effort in the Blue Hill area to rehome Starlink equipment once they actually got their fiber deployed. And I know one individual in Gouldsboro whose Starlink equipment has now been supplanted by Fidium, and was wondering if there was something to be done with it here. So I think for those scenarios, like you were saying, Olivia, where the purchase of the equipment is a potential obstacle to the service anyway, is that something that maybe this committee would be interested in facilitating? I don't think there's anybody else that wants to coordinate that work here, but if somebody has old Starlink equipment that's functional that they no longer need, we could have.
I know that Give IT, Get IT
Mhm.
recycles Starlink, and by recycles just packages it up and gets it at a smaller price to someone in need. I know and I talk with Butler a lot as well. This is the pub page, Peninsula Utility Broadband, for like their don't need your Starlink anymore and their instructions on that. I will say going through other organizations means that there might be a larger cost than the committee or community holding on to it in a certain space. But it means that y'all don't have to take on the capacity of being Starlink dealers in your area. And Give IT, Get IT does have affordability considerations in terms of making sure people have access when they cannot afford usually a computer thing, but Starlink is a little bit of a different beast, but that consideration still applies. But I can bring back information.
Would we ask the town to post these resources in the next newsletter and add to the SPDC website? We can absolutely post it on the website, Sandy. And I think we haven't sent out a submission for the newsletter in quite a while. We could certainly do that. And one of the things I have on my list here for communication plans is we can send out an email update. We haven't done too many of those. And so I think, coming out of this meeting, if we have a sense of what direction we're going to be going, and if we want to engage in some of this matchmaking for used Starlink equipment, for example, if that's something the committee feels we should look at taking on, I agree. I don't really have an interest in seeing money change hands. If somebody is done with it and they're donating it to somebody who needs it, I think that should just, all that we need to do is make sure that if there's anything that, it needs to be reset to factory condition, we press that button before it gets handed off, and we go from there. That's sort of my feeling about it.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to get into it as Olivia described it, the Starlink
Dealer.
repurposing enterprise operation.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. I think just making the resource available that folks know that you can do that, just educating them that that is a possibility before someone just throws it out or gives it back is more of what I had in mind.
And
So you would be
the-
interested in communicating to people, if you've got old Starlink equipment, here's Give IT, Get IT, and they can
Yes.
facilitate. And if you're in need of it, talk to them.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Just one other note on that, Roy, it reminded me, so the new town manager and clerk have been trying to update, they've created a whole new website for the town of Winter Harbor. I don't know if it's easy to find anymore, but they have not added any links to the Schoodic Peninsula Broadband Committee. Understandably, it wasn't really on their list. If that could be an ask to have that link on the website, that would be great.
Assuming we still exist.
Right. If the resources are still there anyway, if we're going to be posting resources, it's just it was one of those, it's just verification that the committee existed with the town. There's no documentation with the town right now that the committee even exists.
Well, and it's not truly a town committee either. We've been
Right.
sort of independent, almost from
Yeah.
you existed before us.
Yeah.
All right.
It
Anybody?
does on Winter Harbor's official boards and committees, like PDF, it does say Scudic Peninsula Broadband Committee, Winter Harbor
shit.
members, Sandy Fortin, Steve Ribble, and Paul McGrath.
They updated it since I last spoke with them then. But there's no link to the website, I imagine.
No,
Yeah,
And-
okay.
And I don't know that Steve and Paul would necessarily consider themselves members anymore, but
Yeah,
uh, yeah, okay.
Will do.
Yeah, I can certainly, I'm gonna be stopping by over at the town office tomorrow anyway. Anybody have any other information, questions that they want to discuss about BEAD? Okay. Committee wind up and repurpose. I guess the simplest way to say this is what is the pleasure of the committee? The way I look at it, we've achieved most of our goal, which is that there is presently affordable. Time will tell how resilient and reliable it is. By our definition, broadband service available to pretty much every address in the 2 towns. My concern is that it remains affordable. And to me,
Mhm.
that would be best ensured by having some competition. I don't know that, what's going to happen with that, but that would be the thing that I would be concerned on from the service side of things, that we don't end up with interminable price creep and it gets
Mhm.
just too expensive because, hey, Starlink is this price, we can keep ratcheting up until we hit Starlink. So I think there might still be some work to do. And then from the digital equity side of things, I honestly could see there being a value to having some more, maybe a couple times a year, some more sessions at community locations for topics that might be of relevance to people, just cybersecurity best practices, internet, not so much exactly the types of things that we did before, but just a more general thing. But that's me, and I'm not volunteering to do it, by the way. I'm just saying I see that as being a potential value. And I don't know what that would entail, but that's just something on my mind that I could see some good work that could come out of that. What do the others feel like?
Well, I certainly feel that 98% of our initial mission has been fulfilled, not necessarily through direct effort on our part, although there was a lot of background education and canvassing and so on that went on. And then the market, for whatever reason, solved the issue in terms of accessibility. This question about cost is very valid. I don't know what leverage we as a group of 4 or 5 have to pull right now in that regard, other than being aware. Olivia has leverage, but you have a
well,
comment too.
that's the focus of the main broadband coalition. They've kind
Right.
of broken off from MCA because some of the things the broadband coalition was saying didn't necessarily align with how MCA was rolling out or doing BEAD or other programming. So it feels like Maine Broadband Coalition will be the folks keeping an eye on affordability and doing some of that legislative education. So I really appreciate being invited to this meeting, but also knowing that if there's issues with affordability or connectivity, or anything like that, being able to bring that back to the Broadband Coalition. I attend the policy committee meetings and I'm on the advisory board. So they're kind of really digging into this affordability piece because it feels like MCA has kind of been declawed in the new policy notice for the BEAD program from NTIA. So we're kind of working it from a state level.
Yeah, my comment was less about the importance of keeping on top of this, but the recognition that the five of us, without support from you, Olivia, and people like you, we are pretty much powerless. And I like my time spent to be spent effectively. So being in the background while you folks at the state level can keep an eye on this is probably where I feel that we could be. I like the idea of providing some continued education to the town. I don't know who can do that. Roy, he's signed off temporarily. Said he didn't necessarily want to do it, but he would be an obvious choice to do that kind of presentation. Others, I think, could as well. But given that we now have access, I just wonder what kind of response we would get if we were to offer those kinds of programs on an annual or biannual basis.
I'll just,
And
I'm here. I just had a freeze on the signal, so I decided to turn off my video to save bandwidth. Since I among you am now the one with the worst internet connection. And that's not to say that I couldn't do that. I mean, obviously, like you said, I've done the presentations before, and I'm fine if that were to end up being me. I'm just not the one saying it should be me. I'm just saying it could be something that we focus on, and whoever it is, whoever it ends up being, it ends up being. Yeah.
I guess thinking further along this line, it would require that we restate the mission of our group.
Exactly.
Because my perspective is, and we've changed membership considerably over the 3 years now that we've been in existence. Whatever the goal was has been achieved in small part from our effort, but in large part from efforts outside our control. This next thing having to do with broadband equity is important, and the question is that going to be our charge, and do we want, as a group of 4 or 5, want to be involved?
And I think it might be good to get some feedback from the town governments themselves, if that's something that they would like to see pursued. And if that's the case, then I think that it does make sense for it to be an evolution of this, not necessarily the broadband committee, but it would be probably something new and slightly different. And I think that would make sense.
Ellsworth did a similar thing. They had their broadband committee, and then that kind of wrapped up. And now they have the Ellsworth Digital Inclusion Coalition, which is they're still trying to figure out if they're connected to the town or not. But Digital Inclusion Coalition or Digital Opportunity Coalition, or committee, those have been things that I have seen pop up in other communities, to not kind of co-opt the broadband committee, but to keep the conversation going.
I sort of feel like at a county level, this would be a more important task for a county level, whether it's the RSU adult education, the local adult education doing the digital education, so that there would be regular branding and notoriety to that, as well as Hancock County Planning being sort of the lead on a future of making sure that that coalition and that information is getting back to the municipality. I'm not sure that we as a committee, like you said, Mike, like our involvement in it, what we're bringing to it from here, it's less boots on the ground from here on in. If the information is out there and just keeping us informed and keeping the municipalities informed, I think that's probably where I see this going down the road. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I like the idea of leveraging other organizations that have the infrastructure to pull off these kinds of presentations. I think creating something that's unique to our peninsula, as noble as that is, would have less of an impact in the area towns than if we were to use something that was based with those organizations that you mentioned, Sandy.
Yeah. That being said, though, Olivia, you mentioned earlier about a navigator. I think it would be really critical to get a navigator in place. So whether that's RSU 24 or someone else, what I've heard for 3 years, I've been trying to promote folks going to digital classes and learning more, and it's off the peninsula. That's too far. So just keeping in mind that having something more local.
Yeah. So part of it is trying to figure out what
Olivia,
the best.
Can
Yep.
I hold off just for a second? I know Tom has to leave for 4, so I just wanted to make sure if he had anything that he wanted to add, that he had that opportunity.
You're muted, Tom.
Yeah, thanks everybody for changing the time today. I don't have anything specific. I guess I was going to ask Olivia, from the Planning Commission perspective, from your perspective, is there any advantage of a group similar to what we have here for you, as far as having another body to go to, or are we just kind of not necessary in that respect?
There is
And
a
you're not
lot
going to
of
hurt my feelings if you
no. No, I would say there is a lot of value in having a group, even if it's meeting quarterly or less than that. But the biggest thing is when funding opportunities come up, to be able to so there's the connectivity hub in Stonington. Ellsworth also went for that. And there was supposed to be one in every county. Stonington got it because they had had a group of people together longer than the Ellsworth group had been together. And so some of these funders, including MCA, see this group or this town or this collection of towns has had a long-standing commitment to this work. So we're going to trust that their digital opportunity network or social infrastructure is in place where if we give them this funding, it will actually turn into something because these people are involved and boots on the ground, and it's coming from the inside out. And so it's really helpful in terms of being able to check in about your thoughts on things, check in about what your needs are that you're seeing in your communities. And if those funding opportunities come up, to be able to say, hey, I'm going to email these people, I'm going to have my capacity to pull different towns or regions together quickly so we can apply for this thing, because I've been in the pub conversations and these conversations and checking in with Ellsworth and talking about islands. And so just having people who are familiar with my email and will respond to it, but also just knowing the needs, and knowing who to contact in towns related to particular initiatives. Hopefully that didn't hurt your feelings, but also did not inflate your ego, Tom.
So
Like, I guess my sense is that both Goldsboro and Winter Harbor, their governmental structures, they welcome any assistance they can get. Even if we're just a kind of a conduit, kind of like Olivia was just talking about, I could see that as a role where we're not really out there doing those things like we talked about, the education and all that other stuff, but we're a conduit to help the communication along. So, but that's about all I can add right now.
I'm comfortable with, being the conduit. I agree with Tom's comment. I don't think that we can rely on the town select boards to be prime movers on this. They need somebody to, and I think they would welcome somebody providing this access to the citizens. But I think it's bigger than the peninsula, and I think that If we can leverage larger organizations to make program or resources available, we should do that, being the conduit, not the prime movers.
And I think to that point, what you've been doing already and communicating with Ander at RSU 24, I think that's a good connection to make.
Mhm.
I don't know where Ellsworth Adult Ed is right now, but I know Ander is tremendous with
Mhm.
Adult Ed in
Yeah.
RSU 24. I was on the board for RSU 24, so I've got a long history there. And I think there may be a lot of very fruitful partnership that could happen there. I know it's been hard to get stuff off the ground before.
And
And
that's been interesting in terms of, I know that um, the person doing digital equity work in Washington County has given some internet safety presentations at RSU 24. And part of that with any like digital navigator capacity, whether it's part-time people in like focusing on the local level of not making someone drive more than an hour to get to like an hour-long class, because that's not a good use of funds or gas. But seeing if there's a way to develop like internal capacity in peninsulas and areas, but also like meeting the need where it's at, because some people don't need or don't want a full-time digital navigator tech coach
Mhm.
throwing every kind of programming at them all at once. But yeah, those conversations with Annie at Ellsworth, Morgan at the Blue Hill, not Blue Hill, at Stonington, Deer Isle Adult Ed. Been talking with so at their adult ed meeting, all of them talked about it, and I had a proof of concept, and so all the adult eds in Hancock County are on board.
Right.
And Ander and I have been talking about some stuff with the jail as well, because there might be funding there.
so I want to say this before Tom has to go. If there's anything that anybody would like to go out as part of the next email that I send out, we're not going to send it out tomorrow, but if there's thoughts that you would like us to communicate to the community for the handful, the 100 or so subscribers that we have, information to push out, certainly let me know over the next couple days, and then we can craft that and get that included. My other thought is, I can't tell you how many times, because my field is IT and I get calls from people and they say, you should, as I'm explaining stuff to them, what you should teach a class about this stuff. I'm like, the thing that I know is everybody who's ever told me they took a computer class at RSU 24, or adult ed in Ellsworth, any of those types of things, they were always like, well, it wasn't what I wanted to know. And so my thought process is, in this email, if our messages, we're going to try to start becoming more of a conduit, to use the word, for information about digital. I don't know if we want to use the term digital equity, but because equity is a bad word right now in a lot of circles. But
I
just
always say digital skills training.
there you go. Digital skills. That's perfectly fine. If there are things that you as a community member would like to see education about, let us know. And then that's another thing that we can perhaps have some back and forth with whoever might be providing such trainings, and figure out, well, these are the topics that people said they want to know more about. And then maybe something could be crafted and organized with that sort of feedback. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that would be awesome to put those feelers out there. And if it's something like people want to learn or have like an internet safety support group, that's been really helpful. Folks like that. Another example of digital skills training is with fishermen, the new requirement for electronic vessel
Yeah.
trip reporting.
Mhm.
That's been crazy. And so
Yep.
I'm providing a little bit of capacity at the Island Connectivity Hub in Stonington for just going up there and sitting and being someone fishermen can approach and talk to. Part of this is I'm a little bit of my background, born in North Carolina, raised in San Diego, California, and then I moved in 2017 to Maine to go to College of the Atlantic for marine biology, and all sorts of fun things. So I went down the fisheries rabbit hole, and coastal and community history, which brought me into like Winter Harbor's Historical Society, which was great. And then I did the Island Fellowship, and I was at Swans Island working with their historical society. And then I became the interim executive director of their library for about 9 months. And then I moved off island because housing, and started working with HCPC. So I do pride myself on being someone who is approachable and enjoyed company with fishermen, whether I'm wearing extra tufts or not.
Olivia, you just mentioned libraries, and I think about just kind of being that conduit for the community and making sure that we're connecting with our local libraries for digital skills. I think that's a great place for folks to learn.
Yeah. And that's part of it with digital navigators is they're not necessarily always going to be at RSU 24 or wherever, making sure, hey, library, what is your capacity or interest? Hey, town office, what is your interest in having people help people do their vehicle registration? And making sure that it's someone who has gone through a certain level of training or like understanding of sensitive and private information. And what they should be doing and what they shouldn't be doing, when helping people out, especially with one-on-one support.
Be great to do a train the trainer for navigators in high school.
Which there's like crazy stuff with that. I've been talking to Elaine at SCEC about it. And there's STEM kits where you purchase them, the kids get to put together laptops and computers, and they get to keep one, and you can sell or give the other one to a community organization. And so I've been trying to figure out creating that program. And part of it is then with those computers and other things, they basically put it together and then get to teach people about it. So there's other initiatives in Washington County and other things in terms of engaging with young folks to build their workforce development, give them job skills in a really like low risk setting because there are things in place, give them tech skills, which are great. And there is, I believe, state funding that will pay their like wages for providing that help. So that's part of do we need a big old digital navigator, or is there capacity or an interest in educational intergenerational opportunities that bring community together?
Cool.
Okay. Anybody have anything else? I'm guessing once we actually get a request for reimbursement, then we can start thinking about a subsequent meeting. And then we can have perhaps a little bit, I've made a note here just to get a balance update from Brianna at the town office in Goldsboro, see where we stand with the leftover funds. And then we can have a more complete discussion if we want to. See you, Tom. Thanks for hanging in there with us. Nope, you're good. We can have more complete discussion about what we want to do with whatever funds we have remaining. And maybe we'll have some feedback to share from the community about what they would like to see from us going forward. Does that seem good? And then, I hate to leave the next meeting as TBD, but if we do end up becoming sort of that conduit that meets, if we do have a quarterly meeting, maybe it doesn't have to be super involved, but obviously we can communicate as we've been communicating over email as things come up. But that's something that you'd be interested in going forward, that makes sense to me. And then we're not really so much a committee that's, action oriented as much as we are sort of advisory and sort of oversight almost, but nothing to oversee.
Yeah. The Scudic steering committee. But don't put that on anything, because if you say steering committee, everyone
Oh,
goes crazy in towns.
careful with that.
And so Roy, do you want to sort of table like what that conversation would be with our select boards for future meeting? Just establishing what we hear back from the community, from sharing resources, and then decide what we might call ourselves at a next meeting.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I mean, I don't know that we were really, I don't know that we were really sort of created by select boards in the first place, even when it was getting
We were.
started. You were
Yeah.
created by
Yeah.
the select board. I think
Yeah.
Gouldsboro just sort of
They asked
tagged
for
a-
volunteers, and I unfortunately raised my hand.
I'm so glad you did.
well, Scudic Institute was asked for somebody to participate, and then I got volunteered by my then supervisor. So that's why I'm still here.
But with regard to, the future, I think the steps would be to wait for the official request from Winter Harbor for the OWL and that technology. And in the
Yep.
meantime, find out from Brianna exactly where our finances stand.
Right.
My own bias is assuming the future of this group, if there is a future for this group, is in the direction we're talking about. We really don't need a banking account anymore.
Right.
I think finding a way to appropriately disperse the funds would make sense, and then we just become a conduit for information related to broadband.
I would say it may be worth having a discussion in any wrap up, especially if we are surrendering whatever funds we may have left to the towns. It may be worth, if we feel the need to keep our digital tools, namely our website and our Zoom capability, if we feel it's necessary to maintain those, then we may want to ask for, if the select boards feel there's value, especially where we're giving them stuff, in continuing to facilitate this work and whatever we end up calling ourselves, to ask, would you be okay committing to splitting between the two towns the annual cost of maintaining, for example, our Zoom and our website registration? To me, I don't think that's an unreasonable ask, and certainly smaller than what we have provided to them.
Yeah.
You had a thought, Olivia?
Yeah, sometimes if I don't know what the status or deal with the grant funding is on y'all's end, but sometimes it is good to have some money on hand to be able to provide matching funds if there is a particular grant opportunity for your region specifically. That sometimes comes up, but that doesn't have to be something that this funding would go to. That's just a note for consideration, I guess.
I mean, the only funds that we have left are funds from an earlier round of grants that essentially the town of Gouldsboro applied for on behalf of both Gouldsboro and Winter Harbor. And so for us, basically, our work. And so it's
help me here, Roy. We don't really have legal status as an LLC or any other entity, right? We
correct.
In that
Right.
regard, we are a subsidiary of the town governments to receive those grants.
Right.
Yeah, they're the fiscal agent for the grant funding,
Yeah.
and Gouldsboro was the only one that was willing to take on that responsibility. Yeah, and in sense of that, Olivia, like the towns would still have the funds available We're just saying that we would split it between the towns, so it's not that we're saying we're gonna spend it down, but it would still be there, assuming they don't want to spend it down.
I think that would also depend on if there's any expectation that we give them, because if we don't give them anything, then it's probably just going to go into their general fund and
Yep, good point.
Yeah.
lapse
be
into
gone.
undesignated balance.
It'll be a rounding error. Yeah, I guess my personal feeling is I wouldn't have any problem with asking the towns for support for our Zoom capability and, some administrative overhead. But I don't want to get down this path that we were talking about earlier, where we become the consortium or the clearinghouse for
Mhm.
a fairly significant operation. I think we need to watch out for mission creep here.
Well, I think it really depends on if the select boards feel that there's value in us continuing to do that work. And
Yeah.
if they feel our work has run its course, then I'm sure they'll let us know. They say, again, I don't think it's a big ask.
Right.
But if they don't feel the need to have us continue to meet, then I mean,
So
we could
step-
always meet on our own, but we'd probably be running with free stuff and
Yeah. But in terms of next steps, then I guess we need to see that invoice from Winter Harbor. We need a checking account balance, and then put our heads together again to decide what to do next.
so what I'll do is certainly when I see a request come from Sarah or somebody at the town office, I can circulate that. And like I said, probably next week I'll send out that email to our subscriber list on MailChimp and see what people say. I mean, there is the possibility too. I'm not saying we should do this, but I mean, in the same way that we did mail surveys before,
Mhm.
because we've only got about 100 or so subscribers on MailChimp, it may be, if it's the committee's desire, if we've got sufficient, if we've got a couple thousand in funds left, it may be worth doing another mailer and asking for feedback that way. It may not. But if we're going, I mean, ostensibly the funds that we have were to go to this work in the first
Yeah.
place. So I would rather we use it for this type of work, even if it's a little bit outside of what our primary focus was, than it just become a donation to the two towns.
Right. I agree with that, Roy,
do
and
too.
just having some valuable mailer, though it may be, once we know that there's digital equity skills training or something, an invitation or something along that line. I think there's still more information to be gathered on how we could spend the money wisely for
Okay.
digital access. Yeah, more to come in the next meeting.
Okay. So we will have that on the next
Excellent.
agenda.
Thank you
other
for
than that-
coordinating.
Other than that, we'll keep our eyes and ears open and go from there.
All right.
Great.
Right.
Thank you all.
Thank y'all for including
Thank
me.
you.
Thanks, Olivia.
Thank you.
Have a good night, everyone.
All right, bye.